Let's cook some dinner together. I'm going to be making some shima, lamb, okra, all that good stuff. Let's get cooking. A ton of you guys said the other video was too fast and you would appreciate it slowed down. So this is what we did. We re-edited our short form into this video. If you've never made this dish before, the number one thing you need is time. It can be time consuming and a lot of patience too. But I promise you it's worth it in the end. I started by chopping my lamb in half because I realized that the other portion was too big. It was very fatty and very tender. Yes, for our kind of food, you do need fatty pieces. Add about 2 cups of water and set it to boil. While that is boiling, you start with the vegetable, washing the okra and making sure that it's fresh, re-washing it again and then chopping it. I normally chop my okra in small, thin circles. That way it cooks very well, and I cook 2 types because Gabe does not like the slimy one. In my language, we call it delele. Growing up, this is how I was taught to check if okra is fresh, so I would never not check it. After a couple of minutes, I check to make sure that my meat is boiling well, and my little helper comes to help me with the milling. In America, it's called corn flour. It's similar, but yet very, very different.
First, we're going to do number 1, then number 2.
Thank you, bud.
Number 2 is going to be last because it's like going to take more time. Let's get in it.
I absolutely love that he likes to help, but it also saves me so much time because this was the most time consuming part for me.
Well, I did doing a lot at once.
Before you know it, the okra is frying. This is the first batch, which is the fried okra, because it takes a little bit longer to cook than my delele. I do chop the onion quite fine, not as small as I want to, but it works great. So I make a couple batches because some onion is going into the okra and then the other will be going into the meat. Watching Tisaiwe work so hard on his milli meal back there is so impressive. It's time to add the onion into the okra and just let it fry all together until it browns. Before we know it, it's time to make the shima. So here I am using 2 cups of milli meal. I add water to and just check the consistency. It's kind of a see as you go. It either can be too thick or too thin, so I can't exactly say how much you would need. Also, the reason why we sieve it is just to make sure that it's all the way clear. And then once the milli meal is mixed with cold water, we boil some hot water and add it. We stir until it starts boiling. And then he moves on to add the second milli meal, which is the cassava flour. Not every Zambian meal has cassava flour, but because I am half Malawian, that's where we get cassava flour. I do save the broth from the meat because I added some flavor to it when starting, and that's what I'll make my gravy with later. Before you know it, it's time to fry the meat, and I add some tomato, onion, and garlic. I add some oil.
Or just put too much flour in its face, it'll just fall right off.
I wish you guys could smell this. It smells so good. I also don't chop my tomatoes. I let them cook by simmering. When the meat starts to fry, I let it fry on all sides. And then I start adding my spices. I did get these spices from Zambia, but I'm pretty sure you can get them on Amazon. Before you know it, it's already frying all together. It smells so good. And the tomatoes I didn't cut, look how easy the steaming mashes them up into the sauce. No more wasting tomatoes on the chopping board. I washed some more onions and it was time to chop some onions and garlic for the meat. This is the point where you wish you were already eating when hungry because it smells amazing. Okay, time to chop my okra for my delele, which is the slimy okra. When I tell you guys this okra was fresh, it was so fresh it felt like it had literally been picked from a garden. Like the same day just before we bought it. I added a tomato to the meat and left it to simmer too. And it was time to get out the grandma goodie bag for the delele. Added some soda to the delele. And then I had to check on the fried okra for Gabriel to see how it was doing. At this point, it was literally a successful okra stir. Look how delicious that looks. The tomatoes in the meat had already been softened. It was time to stir them in. And then in my okra, I only add tomatoes. It was coming all together, you guys. I was so excited to eat. And I did add some salt. I also remember that I had a bouillon laying around for the meat, so that did definitely come in handy. At this point, I had all pots going at the same time, just trying to make sure I didn't burn any. And then it was time to make my thickener. I did use Royco and Bisto, another sauce thickener that I've been using for many years. What should I add, you ask? Until the ancestors tell you it's enough. It was time to add the broth that I had saved with the thickener into the sauce and stir it around. That's how good it was looking and smelling. At this point, the kids had probably asked 10 times if it was time to eat yet. It was then finally time to cook the nshima, and I'm so glad I didn't have to sieve this in order to have it ready. Tusawe had already done it all. All I had to do was literally stir it in. If you're a beginner, this is very dangerous. I don't recommend it starting while it's on the stove. It takes time to learn it, and even as I've learned it, I still get burnt to this day. But the secret is to start slow and then go in as it gets harder. It takes some time and practice, but eventually you do get it. Not my clothes showing evidence of what I've been through. Stirred it for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then it was time to serve. I actually did let it simmer for 15 minutes before I served it, because the simmering is just as good as cooking it. And before you know it, it's a nice, hot, steady nshima. I also do still wipe my spoon with water before I serve, as it does take some time to get ready. Everyone's hungry, so the kids set the table while I get it all served. I prefer mine really hot, but for the kids, we do wait for it to cool off a little bit before we can give it to them. And my biggest kid too. He doesn't eat it very hard. The whole time I was cooking, Gabe was doing the night routine. Finally, it's time for us to all get together and eat as a family. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it for you guys. See you in the next one. Bye!
They're so beautiful. All right, mommy. There you go. All to yourself, no hauling kids in and out of cars. See you. Hey, you don't want to say hey. Oh, when mommy gets home, we're going to give her the cards, right?
Scrabble cards.
Our cards that we made for her, spent so much time making for her. Then what are we going to do?
I don't know.
We're going to make dinner for mommy. What's mommy's favorite meal? Nshima, that's right. So we're gonna make nshima for mommy. So we got the meat boiling, so it's cooked and tender. We're gonna cook it in the pan. Then I have the vegetables chopped up and ready to go. I have the tomato, and then Tusawe's gonna help me with the nshima, right, buddy? I got my man Tusawe over there. He's gonna sieve it, right?
Save.
Hi, mommy. Mommy, come. Close your eyes.